나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thanks for being here. It's good to see you again. Um, this Gosho we're reading, this writing of Nichiren's, is kind of like a highlight reel, yeah? He's talking to the head monks of Seshoji, where he spent so much of his adult life learning, researching, and practicing Buddhism. He's hitting all the high points of the many discoveries he made, insights he received, by virtue of his great teacher who has now passed away. But you sense in Nichiren always this, I guess you'd call it an inclusivity, or maybe it's just his tendency, his personal tendency to be a facilitator. I almost said teacher, but you know how I feel about that word. It's, somebody that we label a great teacher is generally somebody who creates an environment where learning is an essential part of just being there. Because that's where the teaching happens, within ourselves, right? And having said that, and I think it's curious that I said it that way, this was Shakyamuni. As profound and deep as his immersion into the Buddha mind was, Shakyamuni, Siddhartha Gautama, when he became Shakyamuni, the great sage of the Shakya clan, from the Shakya clan, his Buddhahood, his Buddha-ness, understood that each and every one of us has a samsaric identification that simply by geography or placement or time has exposure to life in a very unique set of circumstance. Yeah? But that once you get past those attachments of identification to your specific region, your specific parents, your specific community, your specific everything, we're this same energy moving through time-space, right? There is no difference at that level. At that fundamental level of existence, everything is doing the same thing. Nothing is static. Everything is constantly in change. Somebody commented recently on what is a moment. That comes up all the time. And I'll digress for a moment and just answer that, because I think a lot of people we tend to think past a lot of things that we might question but don't deem important enough to take the time to look at, and we just go by it. But let's dive into a moment for a moment. Specifically in relation to Buddhism and the granularity that Buddhism examines the human experience. because that's what all the sutras are. That's Shakyamuni speaking to that incredible, unfathomable, innumerable, all those words. Because the variety of manifestations of potential hasn't been fully expressed in the 14 billion years that this universe has existed. It's continuously refreshing and recombining. But what's it refreshing? What's it recombining? A core thing. Energy in various potentials manifesting constantly, this process. And Buddhahood is our mind's ability to stand aside while within it and observe that process. Influenced by the amazing process without being personally sucked in to little tiny aspects of it that then force us to be blind to the whole. Right? It's this push-pull. This is why it's a practice. We constantly have to do it. We don't just flip a page and go, ta, we're done. Because there's no done. Done is a static thing, and there is no static thing. So it's a constantly evolving, changing, roiling mass of amazingness. From that point of view, nothing holds you down. Nothing says, I am. Everything says, I'm in. I'm part of this process. Look at that. Stop trying to stop the universe and make it a thing. That's where our suffering comes from, our anxieties. I will get, I'm going to lose. Those are vantage points of illusion because they assume a static point. But that's not useful for living. It's a death of sorts. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Right back around to that moment, right? So what is a moment? Well, a moment is one we just had. But analytically, a moment is the time it takes for energies to manifest, the formation itself. So try to nail down a time component to formation, and very quickly you come to the conundrum of trying to define something that is invented, constructed of the process itself, because the process doesn't have time. Right? When we talk about Buddhahood being, or anything being, since time without beginning, try to wrap your mind around that idea that before the Big Bang, there was no time. What is the primary ingredient necessary, the primary concept necessary for there to be time? Time is a measurement. That's what time is. It's a measurement. How can you measure anything if there is no thing? It's what we talk about in Buddhism, noumena versus phenomena. Phenomena, everyone will have 100 different descriptions of what phenomena is, from rocks and buildings and planets and the universe to a thought, a smell. It's all phenomena. It's all thingifying. So prior, because there is a prior, or outside of, because there's an outside of, How can you have prior or outside of without the thing? If there's no thing, there is no prior. There is no outside of. Because there's no space. Time is a measurement of space. Space is an expression of time. Yeah? That's why in our language we put them together, because they're the same thing, they're the same phenomena, albeit described from, experienced from a different mental position. So, at what expression of energy is there space, mass created from energy where something of a measurement, time, can be made? We talk about in quantum field theory and other quantum things like superposition and all these different states about the sudden appearance and decay of things that seem to appear and disappear. How do we measure that's a moment? That's why in Buddhism we talk so much about formations and quelling those formations. We want to quell them from the standpoint of our attachment to them. We don't want to annihilate the formations. We want to cease their production of identification, but we don't want to cease the formations themselves. This is a subtlety that's very difficult to understand, reading the words of Buddhism, especially through multiple translations and writings. And I believe this is one of the reasons why Shakyamuni was so adamant about teaching sermons without writing and documenting, but by singing. Because in the human activity of singing, we engage many consciousnesses, right? Hearing, feeling, the tongue, sound, the conceptualizing of the rhythms, the vowels, the consonants. There's a lot going on in singing. And singing always connects humans to one another. There are cultures based on that. And there's something about singing that transcends translation. It transcends language. It's a sensation, a real sensation. You may not know the Icelandic language, but you can listen to them just like you can listen to Afrikaan or other cultures, ancient cultures, and listen to their songs, and you can feel laments. You can feel courage. You can feel inspirations of different modalities of being in song, in the voice, the human voice. Getting back around to what I started talking about. So moments. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. What is birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death? You've heard me say that 1,000,000 times. In a moment, for energies to instantiate, to manifest an electron, a photon, a molecule, any space-time component is a moment. Can you count how many we've just experienced? Hell no. What's important is to realize that there is so much abundance of moments going on that it becomes entirely reasonable to assume that what we experience in this human consciousness is a mere gleaning of this massive activity, this kinetic energy, this kinetic momentum of all this karma, all these formations, all these innumerable, uncountable, right? Sands of the Ganges crushed, and world systems would go by for each grain of sand from the Ganges, and then crush all those worlds and then make them again and start go. It's unreasonable to even consider that kind of moments. And we're constantly going through them with everything else. The great expanding, accelerating expansion of the universe. You and I. That's a moment. Moments. Momentum. You see? So back to task, Shakyamuni understood that for each of us, even location speaking, are experiencing this huge amount of momentum subtly differently. And so he encouraged us to study all of his teachings, because from whatever perspective or place or geography or mental space we occupy, even if we misunderstand some things, once we study the breadth of it, certain truths they just will bubble up. Even though all of them are based on the same truth, we experience differently. So he encouraged us to study broadly. And what Nichiren is describing in this letter is his experience of doing that. From here and there, and look at the examples today, and in the history of Japan, and in the history of Buddhism, and from India to China to Korea to Japan, to all these different moments in history when it came together, and then eventually, because of human egos, avarice, ignorance, blah, 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 things would start to stray until somebody would come along and go, hey, over here. Oh yeah, boom. This happens constantly throughout the history of Buddhism. How amazing is that? And it can only happen that way because Shakyamuni was so brilliantly enlightened that he taught to that very frailty of samsara. That's amazing. And now Nichiren, in our epoch, is doing it again. He's in Japan. He's going, look, Japan, criminy. You're all over the place. Look at what Shakyamuni has been saying all along. How do you not get it? I mean, you have to forcibly not get it to do what you're doing. And one by one, he knocks them down, knocks them down, knocks them down. And so in this letter, he's speaking about his master and his insights that he himself attained through study with his master. And he's expressing it to the remaining monks that are now going to be taking leadership in this Seshoji temple. But isn't he also teaching them? He can't help himself. He's saying, these are the great insights I received from my time at Seshoji with this great master. But psst, come on over here. Let's do this right. Ultimately, that's what my experience with Dozenbo taught me. Let's do this right. Free of ego, free of desires for power and manipulation or ego. Just look clearly at Shakyamuni's teachings, and it's obvious. The self-expression of Buddha in each and every one of us is our own personal practice. It's a unique individual effort. But the enlightenment is equal in all things because it is the process of the universe. And we can all experience it, witness it, see it, and it's very liberating. It's ultimate liberation. It's in the Lotus Sutra. Just do it as read, as expressed. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be the discoverer. Shakyamuni, Siddhartha discovered it 3,000 years ago. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just roll it. Right? The great wheel-turning kings. Just roll it. You'll see for yourself. So this is what is fascinating about Nichiren, is that he's just, the emperor's naked, the emperor's naked, the emperor's naked. But he's not trying to ridicule the emperor. He's not trying to show everybody what's really happening. What he's saying is, hey, look from here. Don't you see what I see? Isn't it really obvious? That's Nichiren. That's our mentor. Stop befuddling yourself with all of this identification and just do as read. Here's a mandala so you can focus your attention on Myoho Renge Kyo. Thus I have heard, Namu. I am here, I am present, and I am doing the obvious. I am instantiating this timeless, spaceless perception of everything. Buddha. Myoho Renge Kyo is the teaching, is the law, is the form in samsara that this knowledge takes. Let me instantiate it now. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Let me do that. Let me. Let myself. I give myself permission to enlighten. Does that work better? Words get in the way, but I'm trying. I'm really struggling with this translation. There's a lot of westernization in here. The next paragraph is headed with Shingon masters and their prayers. Prayers? Really? Well, if they're prayers, they're already screwed up in the head. Because the word prayer is based on demanding something from outside oneself. And Buddhism is not about that. It's the polar opposite of that. In Buddhism, we understand that reality, all things, are of the mind. They're within our own persistence, momentum. And that is the very thing that prevents us from seeing the momentum of which we're all a part. Prayer is a denial of the very thing that is our enlightenment. It's a grotesque word. And it belongs to magical thinkers, mystical thinkers, who've convinced other human beings that we don't have the power to do anything in our lives, that we're just sailing along as victims who have to atone for being here. That's prayer. A meditation, at least, is a word closer to the ideal, is that the answers are within. Look at your own experience clearly, without attachments, right? Experience the momentum of your tremendous field of karma. That's Buddhism. So, yeah, there's a lot of problems with these translations. And I'm not saying the West isn't capable of profound insight. If it weren't, we'd be wasting our time, right? But the rhetoric we've placed around it is an entirely manipulative thing. And so to adopt that rhetoric, what a grand error that is. So let's read what, or try to read what Nichiren is saying here. Tripitaka Master Subhakarashima was a king of a state in central India. He became a monk, abandoning the throne. In other words, his very act was one of letting go of attachments, yeah? That much he understood about Buddhism. Having received the teachings of the Lotus Sutra from Shu Sheng and Chao Ti in a state to the south, he built a number of stone stupas, honorific place, a Butsudan, if you will, containing the enlightenment of Buddhist practice. Yeah. Thus, he seemed to have been a practicer of the Lotus Sutra. He was doing all the right things. Just looking at my time here. Having learned the Great Sun Buddha Sutra, however, he seemed to think that the Lotus Sutra was inferior to the Great Sun Buddha Sutra. What's that an indication of right there? Yeah, he walked away from the throne to pursue the life of a monk, but he hadn't let go of the ego that surrounds being a king. So he's starting to pass judgment now on, hey, this is the most recent thing I've read from Shakyamuni Buddha, or a sutra written about Buddhism, and it's striking me in a really interesting way. I've been studying that Lotus Sutra for a long time. This one, could I make the statement that this one's better? Why are you comparing Shakyamuni's teachings as better or worse? They're all the same. They're all magnificent, eye-opening opportunities to get you to Buddhahood. The Lotus is the one that teaches you your Buddhahood's been here all along. Just awaken it. Well, this preparatory teaching, this is the one I'm into now, so it must be the best, better than. See, that's an egotistic evaluation. So right there in the construct of this translation, this words, this transposing of Nichiren's words, he's making that point. At first, he did not insist on this thought. Did somebody give him that thought? No, he made that thought in his own mind. But when he became the master for the Emperor Xuanzong in China, he began insisting on it. There's the old king. I'm the authority. I know, Mr. Emperor. You can rely on my knowledge, 'cause I know. Power dynamics, ego, position. That's not Buddhism. The emperor should have been impressed on his own if he were practicing and sharing Shakyamuni's true teaching. But no, he had to tell the emperor, oh, this is the one. This is the one you want right here. While harboring fierce resentment against the Tendai school, because they were so popular and so majestically right, Subakarashima suddenly died. Oops. And was tied with 7 iron chains to the Hell Guards. Now that's hyperbole, right? Because he had actively, as a monk, he crapped all over Buddhism. So his error was profound. And that's what the visualizations of iron chains with the 2 guards of hell, because his life condition plummeted. He was then taken to the palace of the king of hell. There he was told to return because he still had life left to live. You need to redress this poison you've created. Realizing that this was because he had slandered the Lotus Sutra, he abandoned Shingon contemplation, the mudras, the finger position, the magic spells, and all of that, and chanted a phrase in the Lotus Sutra, quote, "This triple world is my property," Buddha's property, and so on and so forth, right? At that moment, it is said, the chains were cut and he was sent back to this world. So what actually happened? Did Subakarashima actually die? Or did he, as a scholar, basically completely deny his own enlightenment? He died, in effect. When Subakarashima meditated for rain under imperial order, it began raining immediately. The next moment, however, a horrible wind began to... Page-turning karma. A horrible wind began to blow and brought terrible disaster in the end. Probably a hurricane or something of that nature. What do they call them? Tropical storms. When he died, his disciples said that his last moments were wonderful, but in fact, he fell into the hell of incessant suffering. So, Subakarashima had moments of enlightenment, but his ego was getting in the way, right? Question. So here we go with the question-answer format. How do you know it? Nichiren, how can you say this? Were you there? Did you witness it? What evidence do you have to support this hyperbole about Subakarishima's rocky understanding of Buddhism? Answer. According to his biography, his corpse gradually shrank, its skin blackened, and its skeleton became visible. Rotting corpse, yes? Not knowing his hellish appearance after his death, his disciples must have thought that his virtue was exposed instead of his shortcomings. The golden words of the Buddha state that blackening of a corpse stands for hellish karma accumulated during a lifetime. So physical evidence that he hadn't gotten rid of his ego, massive as it was. Even though he tried, he didn't get rid of it. What caused Tripitaka Master Subakarashima to fall into hell? Didn't it prove his superior aspiration for enlightenment that he abdicated the throne to become a Buddhist monk in his youth? He traveled around more than 50 states of India practicing Buddhism and spread the teachings as far as China because of his great compassionate mind. So he did have the facility. Wasn't it owing to his virtue that Shingon Buddhism spread in India and into China and Japan and throughout the rest of the world, and that people began to pray with shaking bells? What is that? Those who want to have good lives in the future should consider why such a venerable man fell into hell. So Nichiren's playing a little turnaround here. Yeah, you say he did all these things and they were so virtuous, and he accomplished an influence that was befitting a king as a monk. But in the end, what did he accomplish? You might want to consider that. Tripitaka master Vajrabodhi, prince of a great king in the south of India, transmitted the Diamond Peak Sutra to China. His virtue is no less than that of Subhakarashima. They taught each other the doctrines of esoteric Buddhism. When Vajrabodhi prayed for rain, by order of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang, it began to rain in 7 days to the delight of the emperor. A little later, however, strong winds began to blow, costing him the favor of the emperor and his ministers. Lots of destruction. Doesn't this mirror the life expression of Karashima? Subhakarashima, right? His move from princedom to monkdom to once again finding superiority and influence in the world of monks to establish the right teachings. Who the hell was he to do that? Kind of like everything was going great until his ego came into being, the great wind that kind of destroys all the progress he's made. The analogy is there, yeah? An imperial messenger ordered him to leave the country. Get the hell out of here. But somehow he managed to stay in China. Afterwards, when Xuanzong's favorite princess died, Vajrabodhi was ordered to pray for her revival. There's that mystical, magical stupidity again. It was pitiful that he burnt to death 2 7-year-old girls in the court as sacrifices. Where in the history of sutras is that Buddhism? Nevertheless, the princess could not be revived. Yeah, she was dead. Tripitaka master Amogajvajra, who came from India to China following Vajrabodhi, must have wondered about those matters. Right? That had to weigh heavy. I mean, people were talking. After Subhakarashima and Vajrabodhi died, he returned to India. He met Bodhisattva Nagabodhi and restudied mantras under him. Later, he devoted himself to the Tendai school. So he was on an upward trajectory, yeah? In spite of his devotion to this school, the Tendai school, he could not transfer himself from the Shingon school to the Tendai school. Why? What was hanging on to him? He, too, prayed for rain by order of Emperor Xuanzong, and it started to rain in 3 days. Delighted with this, the emperor personally gave him offerings. Soon thereafter, a violent wind began to blow, destroying completely the imperial palace as well as residences of court nobles. Astounded by this, the emperor ordered him to perform a ceremony to stop the rain. Stop this, it's out of control. For a while it stopped, but the next moment the wind blew again. The wind continued blowing for several days until Amogavajra was sent back to his native land. Get out of here, you poser. The evil wind called up by those 3 might have been transmitted to all Shingon monks in China and Japan. Was not the terrible wind on the 12th of the 4th month in the 11th year of the Buddha era in 1274 caused by the prayers for rain rendered by Kaganohoin of Amida Hall, the wisest of the Toji temple. It's no wonder that the false teachings of Subakarashima, Vajrabodai, and Amogavajra were transmitted exactly as they had been. How remarkable. So that's what he's offering as proof, right? Look at the history since Subakarashima. Look at how this ego-driven practice isn't Buddhism at all. And the conditions that are mirrored in the environment because of the state of these leaders proves it. So Nichiren, as we know, is very fond of demonstrating the power of the mind and the environment being connected. Now, there may be a lot of hyperbole in here, but the kernel of the teachings that is made redundant and obvious over and over and over again is that our behavior is not insular to ourselves, because there is no container of special energies that we ourselves identified and are containers of. The energies that form a you and a me are no different than the energies that manifest everything in the universe. That energy is everywhere. And its formations, its what's the word I want to use? Its potentials, right? Tendencies and conditions. Water is water. But when you put fire under water, water changes, right? It's what do they call it? A change of state. Like a change of state of mind. A phase change. Water goes from liquid to vapor to gas to ice, solid, liquid, gas. It's all water. Does ice stand aside and go, "Ha, I alone am ice. I rule water"? Dude, pay attention. See that water vapor over there? See that ocean over there? You're all the same. What? Right? That's what we humans do. Oh, no, my water's different. Okay. Fallacy of Grandmasters Kobo and Chikaku. We've already read about this, but he's going to identify the fallacies as he came to understand them, again, through his scholarship at Sheshoji. But as I said in the opening of this video, isn't he also demonstrating to the remaining monks there? You need to get your mind right around the Lotus Sutra. You need to practice this correctly. Let me give you some more information to help dispel your doubts. Already running out of time. I hope you stick with me through these series of videos, because there's so much great, although, like I said, it's high points. We're going to eventually get to the practice of the Lotus Sutra specifically. And more specifically, he's going to talk about the persecution of Nichiren. But then he's going to make a tribute to Dozenbo. And then he's going to talk about the essential aspect of the Lotus Sutra. And then we'll get into Daimoku chanting. And he's going to take apart Namu Myoho Renge Kyo pretty deeply. And he's going to talk about the propagation of the Lotus Sutra into Japan. So, yeah, this is going to be, this is almost a primer on Buddhism. Because he goes through all these highlights. Somebody who's just starting out could do with a little bit of history, could do with a little bit of understanding how this practice is so unique from all the other provisional practices of Buddhism. And in the end, we'll describe that big question that everyone always has when they start practicing Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. What do those words mean? Why are we chanting them? Why do we chant them like this? He's going to discuss that. I'm going to discuss that. It's coming up in future videos. But all of this bulwark that we're examining on the way there, I think it makes the story, our understanding, richer. It gives us opportunities for insights that when we do get to those critical questions, the answers will be like being doused in cool, refreshing water after walking through a desert. They'll make sense. They'll click. The insights will be powerful because we've prepared the ground. And isn't this Buddhism? So please stand by me. Download these podcasts. We're getting there. This is an important one, I feel. It gives us an opportunity for personal insight and deeper understanding of the whole picture. This is our mentor, Nichiren. And he's a great, great facilitator of our personal opportunities for teaching our minds, training our minds to Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, to Buddha knowledge, Buddha experience, Buddha-ness. So stick with me. Thank you for being here. Remember to like, please subscribe. Those two little things do a lot in YouTube to get this information out to more people. So it is a bodhisattva effort for you to do this. It's not an ego thing. I don't want to know you like me. I want you to use the like button and the subscribe button to help make this teaching more available, to propagate. That's our mission as bodhisattvas in life. And it increases the wonder and the experience of our Buddha-ness in our lives. So thank you for doing that. Those of you who are my patrons on Patreon, any of you can join up. There's no hard and fast rule there. I've made all the videos available there and other documents that I occasionally upload. But you have an opportunity to Patreon to also make a donation, a single donation, a monthly donation. It helps pay the bills. It helps keep this channel going. So you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. And some of you, for whatever reason, aren't big Patreon fans. You can contribute directly and use the paypal.me/SifuSylvain link, and you can make any, same thing, just a one donation or a recurring donation. Whatever you can do is deeply appreciated, yeah? And if all that you can do is support this channel by watching it, like, subscribe, that's immense as well. That affects and is a Buddha or Bodhisattva cause. The effect can only be wonderful. And that's what you guys are. Keep up your practice, stay strong, be kind to yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. All right? Bye for now.